Like Paul said, I worked for the University of Arkansas. About half of my time was spent doing research trials and working for Dr. Susan Watkins. She's considered the water guru, and so all of the products that were on the market got sent to us before they went out on the market. So I've seen a lot of the products out there that y'all are working with. The other half of the time, I was a cooperative extension agent. So I've been out in the field quite a bit working with the growers, trying to help them solve water quality problems. It's up to us to help them succeed. They don't always do it right. They can't do everything themselves. We can help them in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways that we can help them is with these water systems. Breeder flocks have become a more efficient machine. Where on the broiler side, as China was talking about, and push to get more meat on these birds. On the breeder side, we're trying to get a healthier bird. We're trying to get more production out of them. So it's not necessarily focused on how big they are anymore. We can help them be more efficient. Egg production has increased by 10% the past few decades. And the secret is to keep them healthy and able to take advantage of the genetic efficiencies that we have put in these. China mentioned also that because we have changed them so genetically, they're not the super birds that they used to be, that used to peck around in the yard in your grandmother's backyard. They could pick up anything then and survive it, but they can't do that anymore. So we've got to help them do that. How important is that water? Chicks drink 38% more water the first week than they did 10 years ago. And we're talking about these baby chicks. We put them in the barns, and in the first week, they're drinking 38% more water than they did just 10 years ago. And I've been doing this for 10 years. It's hard for me to believe that those baby chicks are drinking 38% more water. Just in the first week. So you imagine as this bird gets bigger and gets older, how much more water you're pushing through this system. 70% of a bird's weight is water, a 60-gram egg. It's 90% water. That's telling you how essential water is to that hen. And as I go through this, I hope you're thinking about the farm that you have. And I want you to think about if you are confident enough in the water that you've got and in what you're doing to that water, that you will go to the end of the line and take a drink. This is paying our bills. This is our cash crop. This is putting money, it's putting gas in the car. It's putting food on the table. It's putting shoes on the kids. And yet we're asking these animals to drink water that we won't even go to the end of the line and take a drink of. So what can be in this water? What are we talking about when we're talking about water quality? We're talking about minerals. That's one of the main things. It's often overlooked, but it can affect many areas of water quality. We're also talking about bacteria. Y'all know that makes the birds sick. It can also choke down that pipe size. And you've got big birds in these houses, and they need water. And for these breeders especially, because a lot of them hit it at the same time. So you've got to have a lot of water at one time. Fungi and algae is another group that can restrict the flow of water through the pipe and out the nipple. And people like to group together all the stuff that lives in these water lines. And they think they're all the same. If it's alive, it's all the same. I've separated it out because bacteria and fungus, two different things that can be living in that water line. You can have bacteria and you not have fungus or algae. Or you can have fungus and algae and you cannot have bacteria. Or you can have both. But it takes different conditions to grow those. So each one of your farms is its own ecosystem. Lots of times that explains why you're doing have a different performance than your neighbors. You got to think of your farm as its own ecosystem. You are not going to respond, your birds are not going to respond the same way a lot of times as your neighbor's bird. So you got to take care of it yourself. Think about what's happening on your farm, not somebody else's farm. Start asking yourself questions. And that's what I would do when I try to solve water quality issues with these growers. And go out there, the first thing I did was I just started asking questions. Seems simple, seems like it's very elementary, but start thinking about where that water comes from. Is it coming from a well? In most cases, with the breeder facilities, it's coming from a well or it's coming from rural water. Do you really know what's happening with your well? If it's 200 feet, that's considered a shallow well. And things that happen on the surface, rainwater, temperature change, contamination on the surface, can affect that well. If it's 700 feet, there may be something happening 2 miles away that's affecting your well. So, ask that question. Start that way. What's the mineral profile? That is a really good way to start. If you don't know anything about what's happening in your water, Getting a mineral profile done is a great place to start. It's not very expensive. I don't know up here what it would be. At the University of Arkansas, we charged $19 to do a mineral profile, and you get 25 or 26 different minerals. That can give you a lot of information. Minerals are being added. All of y'all, you have the nutritionists working on your feed, and then you come back behind it, and each one of you is adding a different nutrient, let's say, because your sources are different, your water sources are different, so you're adding to the diet of these birds. Some aren't a problem. Some of the minerals aren't a problem. Calcium, not a problem for the birds. They can handle a lot of calcium. It's our equipment that can't handle the calcium. So that's good information to have. Other minerals can be harsh on intestines. Sulfates is a classic example of this. You've got a sulfur well that people call it. The sulfur in that well can damage the villi in a bird's intestine, and then he can't absorb his nutrients. So lots of times people that have a sulfur well also have birds that aren't performing well. So good information to have. Why are they an issue? There is no such thing as pure drinking water. Water in these carafes has mineral in it. Water, the bottled water you get at the store, it has minerals in it. Unless you're giving your birds distilled water, your water has minerals in it. So you're adding something to the birds. They receive that balanced diet, we come behind it, we add something else on top of it. We talked about the equipment. There are certain bacteria, algae, and fungus that thrive off of particular minerals. And I put iron up there in particular. That's the one that's the most common out there. That's what I see. There are bacteria that live on iron. They use it as an energy source. So a lot of times if somebody has an iron issue in their well, they also have the iron bacteria. And a down and dirty way to check for this so that you don't have to do testing to find out. So I tell people, go in the anteroom, pull up that filter in the anteroom and feel it. You already know you got iron because everything's orange. And if it's gritty, then you just have iron. So you got to deal with the iron issue. But if it's orange and it's slimy, then you got the iron bacteria. So not only do you have to deal with the iron issue, but now you got to deal with the bacteria issue too. Minerals, what exactly do minerals do? Why is that a problem? They affect feed absorption, like I've already talked about with sulfur. It can change the taste of the water. So China mentioned zinc and how important it is to the breeders. It's essential to the breeders and in their nutrition. But when it comes to their water, it changes the taste of their water. And you won't even know you've got zinc. The farm that I dealt with, that we became aware that this was a real issue, was a broiler facility, and their performance had dropped over years. It had been like 6 years and just drop over time. So we got to investigating, and their well, they were pulling from a well. We tested their well, and their zinc levels were astronomical. I thought there was a mistake. But there was not a mistake, and what had happened was they had drilled that well, and over time, there's about a 25-foot diameter section of that well that had sunk a little bit. And all around that well were these tin roof buildings. And over time, as rain falls on those tin roof buildings, they shed zinc. And so there were 3 buildings around this well, and they shed zinc off into the depression of that well, and it had leached down into, it was a shallow well, it had leached down into it. And they had no idea. So it causes an astringent taste to the water, and the birds have just backed off over the years. So wouldn't have known that if we hadn't done a mineral test. Sodium and chloride combined can cause diarrhea. You got 2 different minerals in there reacting. It can cause the birds to flush. Nitrites can damage the neural system, and nickel can damage the heart and liver. And for the broilers, those last 2 aren't that big a deal. We don't keep those birds long enough for it to be a problem. But for the breeders, that can be an issue. I always like to mention that even treated water can present challenges. People think they're on rural water, so they're in the clear. But rural water itself, the rural water systems are required to have 100 parts per million of chlorine. Oh, no. They're required to have so many. It ranges differently for different areas. They're required to have so many parts per million of chlorine when it leaves their facility. And then when it gets to the grower at the end of the line, it doesn't matter what it has. And usually It doesn't have any parts per million of chlorine for you guys. So you're on your own again treating your water. And that's cross-section of a rural water system. So just because you're on rural water or city water does not mean that you're in the clear. Covered holding tank. That can be a really good basic way to start managing the quality of your water. If you've got a lot of heavy metals in your water, you can put a storage tank in and let it settle. Very basic. You do have to keep up with that storage tank. You've got to flush it out and you've got to clean it. But that's a good way to start. Start with a 3/4 inch pipe. We never clean it out. We let the calcium build up, and now we're down to a 1/2 inch pipe just because we're not cleaning our water lines. And we wonder why we can't get water to our birds. We've already restricted ourselves before they've even started. So what other life are you growing? In these facilities, we have warmth, we have water, obviously, and we have sources of food. So when we're growing birds, we also have the perfect environment for growing bacteria. In this environment, we've created yet another problem for ourselves. We've got this nipple watering system, and it's a great system. Used to, there was an open water trough, and you go in and you'd see how nasty that water was, and you go, ooh, I need to clean that out. But it kind of kept it in your mind. We've closed it up. Good advantages: reduced spillage, drier litter conditions, decreased ammonia volatilization, fewer plant condemnations when birds finally get there. It's a great system. Probably not going to get any better than this. But what we've done is we've closed the system up, and we've forgotten about it. It's good up at the house where I'm drinking it. It's good down in the barn too. When in actuality, what is happening in the system is that every time those birds reach up and get a drink, they're adding bacteria back into that system. So what are those birds doing when they're not drinking or eating? They're pecking the litter. And you know what they're getting on their beaks when they do that, or they're pecking each other. And so you really know what they're getting when they do that.